It's May 13, 2015. Here I'm just going to do a little video on my potato experiment this year. Going to be growing potatoes in basically pots here on the porch of my home. These are sort of the results of the last few weeks' labor. This first pot was planted at the end of March. This one 2 weeks later, and this last one 2 weeks after that. This is a mixture of red, purple, and golden potatoes. I have two additional pots that I'm going to show you in just a second that have been separated from these, planted along with this last pot because they developed a suspicious discoloration of their leaves, especially in the young plants. Here are the other two buckets of plants that, again, are on the younger end of the spectrum of the pots I just showed you. And I separated these because of discoloration of the leaves here in some of the younger plants. Now, I have to admit, the young plants in the other buckets displayed some of these features, though just not as severe as this. You can see the darkening with a velvety appearance near the base of each of these leaves. You can even see some of it in this older plant that's in the same bucket, a darkening down near the base of the leaves where the stem appears. And also here on some of these plants as well. And it might just be part of the natural growth cycle of these plants. I don't know, but I didn't want to take a chance with my experiment, and so I kept these isolated in case it was a potato blight. And I'm going to keep them separated until this darkening disappears on these potatoes. I'm doing this video today because I think I've arrived at the next important step of these potatoes, which is actually to build up the soil to another level. Watching videos on YouTube and reading books about this, we can maximize our potato production by building up the soil level to near the top of the plant during this growth phase in order to expand the amount of stem and root system that will grow potatoes. And so now that especially this first bucket is big enough for me to pour in more soil, and probably the second bucket I'm going to do that. And I'll show you in the next couple videos. Here are some of the ingredients for my growing potatoes in pots experiment. Here we have the potatoes themselves, Yukon Gold, Red Norland, and then I lost the bag for this purple potato, but here's a sample of one that's left. I'm using a fair amount of composted manure mixed in with some soil that's been left over from previous projects. And I'm also supplementing the soil with some organic bone meal and blood meal for a source of potassium as well as nitrogen. I guess potassium and phosphorus, I should say. So that's what I'm working with here. I'm going to mix this into a mixture that I'm going to use to build up the soil around the base of the plants until just the tops of the plants are showing. And again, that will provide more substrate, underground substrate for the potatoes to actually grow. So there we have a mixture of potting soil plus our bone meal for phosphorus, our blood meal for nitrogen, both of these organic sources, compost and manure, and then the potting soil which is underneath it. And I'm just going to mix it up and then basically scoop it in underneath the leaves and build up the soil till only the tops of those first two buckets plants are showing. So here are the plants after I've raised the level of the soil about as high as I could in this pot without, I guess, overwhelming the smaller plant. And then also in this plant. And then I'm just gonna water this in. And once they grow a little bit more, I'm going to be raising the soil again until it's heaped in these pots again, so that I have the maximum soil volume and potentially potato production. At least that's what I hope. Okay, so May 5th, the potato in the pot experiment. These I'll hit with more soil in a little while after they grow some more. And just to add a little spice to the video, this is my raised vegetable bed with my carrots doing well. Probably need to be thinned, but I'm going to try without thinning. And then our Swiss chard. I'm going to try and harvest this leaf by leaf and keep these plants alive through the year. And then of course we'll start pulling carrots once they're edible and pull them till the end of the season. So my elevated bed